hear me? Good, thank you. Yeah, thumbs up is good. And Cassie, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Just while some people may still be arriving, well, let's go ahead and just do a very brief meditation using the gong, okay? So we will just let the sound of the gong draw us into it more and more. When the mind's wandering, just let the sound of the gong draw you back to it, and then into the sound more and more. Okay. So, welcome everybody. Really nice to see you again. And those who are comfortable having your video on, it's helpful to me to be able to see you. So see some familiar, friendly faces, and also lots of people that are new to me, but also you look pretty friendly, not too mean. So it's helpful for me. Can feel like I'm communicating. I don't really think you're mean. That was a joke. Sort of. Yeah, so nice to see you all. So each Thursday evening, I'll give some teaching and lead a meditation building on the prior meditation. So I will presume that you have all viewed my presentation from the prior Thursday, either live or from the recording that's on the Barry course website. So is that clear to everybody? Can you all hear me okay? So let's just take a moment now to become aware of pandemic-related feelings that we may be feeling right now. Feelings of unease or anxiety or fears that we may be experiencing for ourselves or for others. Or also some fear about all the uncertainties. And also any other feelings. If there's any feeling of grief or sadness or frustration or anger, whatever the feelings are that are here now, let's just drop down from the head into the body and sense from within any such feelings that are occurring now. Okay, can you feel that? And that's another part of the contagiousness, of course, around us. So many around us are feeling feelings of unease like that. And we are all together. So in our meditations, from this kind of meditation framework is called sustainable compassion training. And we've been exploring one mode of meditation called receptive mode, becoming receptive to qualities, loving qualities of our underlying awareness. So in these meditations, we're bringing to mind a field of care, as I called it, to help us access loving qualities from our underlying awareness, which helps us begin to establish a secure core of love and compassion and awareness in which to process our feelings in a healing way, and from which we can be present to others in a more sustainably caring way, from that secure core of love and compassion and awareness. We need it both to process our own feelings and also within the very same process to become more sustainably present to others. Now, in this process, when I refer to our feelings, I'm referring to all of our feelings and any feeling. Last week, I mentioned feelings of unease or anxiety or fear especially, but it's not limited to that. Any feelings, grief, anger, feelings of despair, any unpleasant feelings, and any other feelings. I'm referring to all of them because we learn to become present to them in the same way. We don't have a different way to be present to feelings of grief, despair, loneliness, or anger that's different from how we're present to feelings of fear, anxiety, unease. We're learning to become present to any and all of these feelings in the same way. In that sense, the instruction is fairly simple, not complicated. All of our feelings need the same thing, which is the actual experience of spacious qualities of warmth, acceptance, care, love, compassion. They all need that. And we're learning how to provide that. And others around us also need that. And we're learning by providing that to our own feelings, we're also already providing that for others around us and their feelings. So that's the direction we're exploring. Is that okay? So now recall how to set up a field of care, because I want to lead a very brief meditation using a field of care. I call it a receptive mode meditation within this kind of framework of practice. I talked about where this framework of practice comes from last week, so I won't repeat that, but it comes from many spiritual traditions, this fundamental pattern of practice. And it's also mirrored in certain areas of developmental psychology. So I didn't make it up. There's a lot of experience behind it. And it's a direction in which we can probably deepen a lot. So we begin the meditation by setting up a field of care, and what I called a field of care. And that was in one of two ways, whatever works best for each of you. It could be what I called a caring moment, just a simple moment of caring connection that makes you happy to recall or feels deeply positive to remember, a moment of caring connection. That could be with another person, with a pet, a moment when you were the caring figure for another, a moment when you witnessed care between two others, but it brought you joy to see that. Or it could be a moment when you're somewhere in a special place for you in nature, in the natural world, that feels deeply warm, where you feel deeply well, safe. All of those can be the caring moment, whichever kind is most connected to a felt sense of warmth, deep okayness, acceptance. or being seen, or being deeply well, or love, or compassion, or warmth. That's a caring moment. You find one for yourself from your own life. The second option to set up a field of care would be to bring to mind a benefactor. That would be someone who you're grateful has been in your life for your world, that you felt blessed by, uplifted by having them in your life, your world. And also like that, it could also be a spiritual figure that's deeply meaningful for you, like the Buddha or Jesus. We use the field of care to evoke loving qualities from our underlying awareness. And when it starts to do that, whether it's a caring moment or evoking a benefactor, when we start to experience those loving qualities that come with that field of care, we do not ruminate about the field of care. That's not the instruction, at least. We just settle back and relax into those loving qualities. Let those spacious, loving qualities process our feelings. So like bringing to mind a field of care is like taking a bucket that we will drop into a well to get water. And then we drop the bucket into the well and we draw up water. And the water we're drawing up are loving qualities from our underlying awareness. And then we drink the water. We do not play with the bucket. You following me? The bucket is the field of care. We bring it to mind, and immediately we start to experience loving qualities that come with that sense of re-inhabiting that caring moment or being with that benefactor. And then we just relax and settle into those loving qualities. We drink the water. We don't ruminate about the field of care, whether they're all caring enough. We don't worry about that. We don't play with the bucket. We drink the water. Is that metaphor helpful a little bit? It's the water we're going for. It's the loving qualities that we experience when we bring the field of care to mind. It's not the bucket that we're going for. It's just the means to get the water. The field of care is just the means to evoke these loving qualities. It's the loving qualities that we settle into. And that's how we spend the meditation, okay? So let's do that meditation again, field of care, receptive mode, very briefly, just to remind ourselves of it. And then I want to take us a little bit more deeply into the way to become more deeply receptive to love and compassion in this way. So first, let's just do a little bit of abdominal breathing. Just breathe into your abdomen. So the abdomen expands with each inhale. And then just let the breath settle into its own natural rhythm, breathing into the abdomen. Just natural rhythm of breath. And feeling the abdomen expand and contract with each breath. And now bring to mind your field of care. It is your caring moment or that makes you happy to remember, or your benefactor figure you're grateful is in your life. And bring this to mind not just as a memory or an abstraction, but as happening right now or present here now. You are being seen as deeply worthy of love and care beyond judgments. And just relax into the felt sense of this field of care, steeping in its loving energy and tender qualities. letting that energy and those qualities infuse your whole being. Just accept this loving energy and its qualities into your whole body and mind, into every part of your body, and into every layer of feeling and emotion. As if every part of you is loved in its very being. Every part of you loved in its very being. Just allowing that. And let any feelings related to this pandemic also be here. Any feelings of anxiety or fear or grief or anger or any other feelings. Just let such feelings also be gently embraced in the spacious, loving qualities of this field of care experience. Fully allowing any feelings to be here in this spacious, caring way of being. Letting feelings just find their own place here or settle in their own way. And now just relax deeply into this feeling of loving energy or warmth or acceptance, however it is. Let that help your heart and mind to just deeply trust and relax and release all of its frameworks. So you let your heart and mind just become completely open like space. And let all the patterns of thought and feeling that arise just unwind and release within this total openness of awareness. This space of deep acceptance, just letting everything be. Thank you. So I would ask you, can you please name one loving quality that you experienced during that meditation? Just name one. Cassie, let's try this. Could you open up the chat box?
Yeah, it should be open now.
So you can, any of you who wish, just put in, just name it. So warmth, felt soothing, felt acceptance, delight, being seen, warmth, felt beloved, peace, sweetness, nurtured, loving, felt openness, compassion, felt safe, Felt surprised by it, felt delightful, felt like I was being held, glowing, tenderness, joy, discernment, held, felt forgiving, felt enfolded, felt rocked, shamatha, okay, ease, safe, joyful, relief, stillness, protected, touched, heartful, tears, peace, pacified, slowing down, unconditional, kind, cradled, joy, uncoiled, deep comfort, but still pissed off. Okay, we'll save that for the next section of our talk. That's okay, the still pissed off part. It's okay. It's being held or embraced in all those qualities, so it's fine for it to be here, no problem. Allowing, mirth, present, home, alive. Wow, you guys are really brilliant. This is amazing. Okay, sorry, I'm getting so impressed, I'm losing track of what I'm doing. You're blowing me away. Okay. Okay, so those are qualities of our underlying awareness. That's the water. Like you take a bucket of water. Is everybody still? I mean, most of us are older here. We're not really young, so we remember wells where you have a bucket and you drop it in the well and you get water. Like we're familiar with the concept. The bucket is like the field of care. It's what is being used in order to bring up something from our underlying awareness, which are these capacities in our underlying awareness for all those loving qualities that you named, and probably many more. Those loving qualities are qualities or capacities of our underlying awareness. When we bring to mind a field of care, it reminds us that we already know how to connect to those qualities we have before. It reminds us that we can again. So the instruction as best we can is not to spend a lot of time ruminating about who is in the field of care. Are they caring enough? Did they do this enough for me? Or I'm not sure if I, feel this, if any caring moment is really real, or we're not spending our time doing that, at least according to the instruction. The instruction is that's just the bucket. The loving qualities are here. Now swim in them, settle into those loving qualities. They're the point of this. You following me? You kind of understand what I'm saying? It's those loving qualities that we're opening to. They're what we're trying to find access to. And where do they come from? They don't actually come from someone else. They're coming from our underlying awareness. When someone is present to us in a loving or caring way, their way of being present to us, resonating with us, is evoking these loving qualities from our own awareness. You following? So when we bring to mind a field of care, it's like dropping the bucket into the well. We pull the bucket up with water. So we then begin to experience the loving qualities from a caring moment or being with our benefactor. And now we drink the water. We immerse in those loving qualities. We let every part of our body and mind and heart, every layer of feeling and emotion just be immersed in those qualities. And that's what can become deeply healing, a healing way for the feelings to process themselves in those loving qualities. Those qualities in Buddhist terms are qualities of our Buddha nature. And you see how immediately available they are. You see that incredible list that many of you put on the chat box. Look at those qualities of our own underlying nature. Look at that. And look how immediately, like that, they're available to tap into. Okay. So that sounds really good. Now, there's another side to all this, which comes with my next question to you all, also for the chat box. Are you ready? Should I ask the next question? You can nod if you want. Did you also have any difficulty with this meditation? Any kind of reaction come up that took your attention away from just the feeling of those loving qualities? So you could not just simply for the whole meditation time, just be hanging out there in immersing in these loving qualities, but you found that your mind was being drawn away from them into other directions. So all kinds of things, chatter, distraction, fears came up, stories came. Not sure if I can trust so many people. So much is coming in here. To-do lists came up, noise in my mind, resistance, not knowing what to recall, working on a relationship problem, worried if I was feeling right or doing it right, inadequacy, got sleepy, I got hungry, I was sort of resistant to love, feelings of sadness came up that took me into them, doubting that I really could be loved, tiredness, and so forth. Good. Okay, yeah. Narratives coming up. The dogs needed to go out. Okay, that's different. I'm talking about just within our own minds. Good. So a couple of things are coming up here that I'm seeing in the list. This is really helpful. Thank you for sharing. First, just as an aside, a few of you are saying, well, I could not really connect to this feeling of well-being or comfort. So often that happens. So let's say that you're using a caring moment as your field of care, that needs to be a moment of caring connection that makes you really happy to recall. That's the first thing, or feels deeply positive to remember it. If it does, you have what you need. But now when you begin the meditation, you really have to follow that instruction to re-inhabit that moment as if it is happening now. If it remains a distant memory in your mind, which is how we're used to recalling prior events, just a distant memory, then it will not bring out those feelings, loving qualities. But if you re-inhabit it as if it is happening now, you really do that, you will immediately begin to feel the loving qualities that come with it. Do you follow what I'm saying? So you need to experiment with that. Anyone who says, well, I couldn't really feel those qualities, it's highly likely that one reason could be that you're not actually re-inhabiting the moment as if it's happening now, or you're not actually feeling the benefactor as really present for real here with you now, holding you in those qualities. Okay. Re-inhabit means to feel as if that moment is happening now. Feel it as happening now. We all know how to do that. We do that with moments of anger that we really start ruminating about and we get angry again. Do you remember that? Haven't all of you done that? Don't tell me you've never done that. So you're ruminating, you get angry again, remembering what happened, right? That's re-inhabiting the moment as if it's happening now and stirring the feelings. Here's another one, and also please don't deny this. Sexual fantasies, right? You're all adults. So adult humans tend to have had sexual fantasies. When you're having that, you're also re-inhabiting the moment. That's what I mean by it. It's as if it is happening now. And the feelings that come with that moment are feelings that you're feeling now. You follow me? So we can also do that just in general with any moment of caring connection. That experience of being seen, of someone being happy, and so forth. Okay? Now, as to my question about difficulties that came up, reactions that took your attention away from being able to just settle into those loving qualities. Many of your, many kinds of examples came up that you named, which is a big help. Thank you. So let me discuss this a little bit. So is everybody listening? This is really getting into a pretty deep aspect of all this. field of care type of meditation, bringing to mind a caring moment or benefactor, and then experiencing loving qualities from within that field of care, felt as if it is happening right now. And you cannot deny, many of you, that you experience those qualities. We have a long list of them that many of you were experiencing. So it's what we're doing in that practice is cultivating receptivity to energies and qualities of love and compassion and awareness that are available in our underlying awareness. But to name that another way, we are cultivating vulnerability. Vulnerability to qualities of love and compassion and warmth and tenderness. You follow? We're cultivating receptivity, learning to open to them rather than being closed up. That's vulnerability. But there are parts of us that are concerned to protect us from vulnerability, for fear that we may be hurt. Parts of us that are concerned to protect us from vulnerability, for fear that we may be hurt. Often these parts of us are part of attachment scripts from childhood, which I talked about last Friday. That is an internal kind of a script that we learned in childhood in which we talk to ourselves in a certain way, like telling myself that no one really can care for me. I'm just not worthy of care. Or no one really cares about anybody, they're just pretending. This is what's called an attachment script. Often it derives from our childhood or earlier in life. So there's a sense, there's a part of us that sort of goes into an internal way of talking to ourselves that dismisses others' signals of care to avoid being let down or hurt by others. So are you following what I'm saying so far? There are parts of us actually that will be triggered by this meditation practice, swing into action, and start to work to shut us down from becoming vulnerable in the way that the meditation is instructing. Don't open to these loving qualities, you might get hurt. Okay, so far, you following? So this practice often evokes parts of us that is familiar. When I say parts of us, I mean familiar senses of self. A sense of self comes up that resists the meditation by preventing our vulnerability to the loving qualities. So for example, a manager controller part of us may rise up that wants to take control by thinking of other things. You hearing me okay? You follow? This is what I mean by parts of us, senses of self. Or a doubting, cynical part may rise up that thinks of reasons not to trust any caring moment. Or a caretaking part of us might rise up that thinks that I should only focus on others and care for them. I should not be focusing on myself. That's wrong. That's like a caretaking part or sense of self. Or a very protective part may rise up that shuts out the flow of love and care because of past hurt. Love and care to that part of us, that protecting part, signals you might get hurt. I'm just shutting this down. You follow? Or there might be a self-critical part that thinks I do not deserve love. And part of me is just talking to myself that way. I don't deserve to be cared for. Or a worrying part, am I doing this right? Or a striving part thinks it should do much more than is being instructed. Or a hopelessness part that feels like I'm just hopeless. I'll never learn any of this. I'm just no good, I'm hopeless. Again, that's a sense of self that rises up, something that we've probably carried with us since much earlier in our life. Or part of us may feel a need to grieve the loss of a caring figure. And a number of you brought that up last Friday as well. Part of us may come up that feels the need to grieve the loss of a caring figure that we're bringing to mind, which is fine and healthy. But what can become unhealthy is if that part of us will not let that feeling of grief be embraced in the loving qualities. It decides that all the loving qualities, that all that crap needs to be shut off. Sorry. And I just need to be grieving intensely and tightly into myself. Away from any loving qualities, that this grieving cannot itself be held in those loving qualities. So a part of us like that, of course, might come up. The grieving part is fine and very healthy. The using the grieving to shut out the loving qualities. There can be no love here because I should just be in pain. That part is the shutting down of vulnerability part that I'm talking about in the name of grieving. Okay, so far? So lots of parts. And actually there are many, many more that could be named. And we could draw from your list that you put in the chat box. So here's the thing. Is everybody listening closely now? This is the part that's pretty important and new for many of us. These parts of us whose ways of reacting like that often developed in childhood think that these loving qualities come only from outside of us. Let me repeat that. These parts of us, these senses of self that rise up in those ways and shut down our receptivity to the loving qualities, they think that the loving qualities come only from outside of us, from other people, not that these loving qualities come from our own underlying awareness. So these parts of us have adopted those strategies of protection, sort of strategies to prevent us from becoming vulnerable to loving qualities. During our childhood mostly, when it seemed to us as children that loving qualities come only from others, from an external world that is not fully reliable. So these parts of us think that we'll get hurt if those loving qualities that we're starting to experience are not accessed from the external world in a safe enough way that these parts of us are in charge of. They think that they are protecting us from being hurt by others by impeding our receptivity to the qualities themselves, which are actually qualities of our own awareness. Every aspect of this field of care and all that we're experiencing within it, the caring moment and all that's experienced within it, or being with the benefactor or whatever it is, every aspect of that field of care that we are experiencing in the meditation, caring figures, energies, qualities, all of those aspects of our experience are all aspects of our own awareness. They are all aspects of our own awareness. The loving qualities are arising out of our own awareness. But these parts of us that developed in childhood do not know that yet. They do not know that yet. They think that these loving qualities come only from outside of us. And so they need to carefully protect us, these parts of us, from getting hurt by when we open to loving qualities that come only from the external world that cannot be fully relied on. These parts of us that I just named and that you named in your chat box do not yet know. They do not yet understand that the qualities we're tapping into, like dropping the bucket in the well and pulling up the water, like the water comes from the well, from the depth of the well. These loving qualities come from the depth of our own awareness. The field of care merely evokes these qualities. You following? So the field of care meditation that we're doing cultivates increasing vulnerability to loving qualities and protective parts of us, that is, protective senses of self, try to prevent vulnerability to those qualities so we don't become too vulnerable to the external world that these parts of us think is the source of the qualities. So we need to help these protective parts of us learn that the loving qualities that they are experiencing in the meditation are coming from our own underlying awareness, which is a reliable source of love, not from an external world that may not be reliable. We need to help these parts of us learn that. Otherwise, these parts of our mind will keep trying to prevent our fuller receptivity to the loving energies and qualities. And that will prevent us from accessing a more sustaining power and unconditionality of love and compassion from our own underlying awareness, which is available there. So now what we're going to do for a few minutes is we're going to do the meditation practice again, but now in a slightly more deepening way that takes into account everything I just said. So I'm actually going to instruct the meditation practice again in a slightly different or fuller way that points our attention to the fact that sooner or later, one or another part of you or part of me, some sense of self with its pattern of thinking and feelings, will probably rise up and start to divert our attention from the loving qualities. Will probably rise up and try to prevent us from just being receptive to those qualities. And I'm going to incorporate that into the meditation now. So it's not just going to be theoretical, it's actually going to come right into the meditation, okay? Does that sound okay? Why not? What the heck, right? What do we got to lose? Give it a try. So now what we're going to do is notice parts of us, this or that sense of self and associated feelings, emotions that arise. And we're going to let them all be gently included in the spacious warmth and acceptance and care and compassion of our field of care, our caring moment or benefactor presence. So any thoughts and feelings that arise can start to feel, any parts of us that arise and any feelings with them can begin to feel accepted, gently welcomed, feel more at home with this process, embraced in the spacious, loving qualities. So they can begin to relax, these parts of us, so that they have the space to find their own way of being here, these parts of us and these feelings, so they can find their own way of settling or beginning to heal. And that can let further loving energies and qualities come forward from our underlying awareness. And so in this way, what we're going to do now is just start to help these parts of us sense that the source of the qualities, these loving qualities, is actually the depth of our own awareness. They don't have to freak out, these parts of us, afraid that we might be hurt by someone else who's giving us these qualities. They can relax because what they're opening to are qualities from the depth of our own awareness, which is completely reliable and an inexhaustible source of those qualities that can be relied on, that we do not have to be afraid of, that is not going to let us down or hurt us. It's the depth of our own awareness. We're going to begin to help these parts of us who protect us from love. Learn that they can trust the source of this love. They do not need to protect us from it. It's the depth of our own being. Okay? Why not? What the heck? Okay, so let's do the meditation practice again. To begin with a little abdominal breathing. Just inhale into the abdomen. They're sitting in a comfortable way, back straight. Eyes could be open or closed. And inhale into the abdomen so it gently expands. And then just natural rhythm of breathing. Feeling the abdomen expand and contract with each breath. And now bring to mind your field of care, so your caring moment, as if it is happening right now. You feel it happening now. Or your benefactor present here with you now. And you are being seen as deeply worthy of love and care beyond all judgments. Just accept it. And relax into the felt sense of this, steeping in its loving energy and tender qualities. And letting them infuse your whole being. Accept this loving energy and its qualities into your whole body. And into every layer of feeling and emotion. Every part of you loved in its very being. Just accepting that love, that warmth, that acceptance, which comes from the depth of your own being. Every part of you loved in its very being. And if part of you is having difficulty with this practice, then without trying to change that part of you, that sense of self in any way, just become aware of that part of you and what it's feeling in a completely accepting way, spaciously allowing it to be here. Let that part of you and those feelings have all the space they need to relax and find their own place in this compassionate openness. Every part of you gently embraced in these same loving qualities, spaciously. Letting everything just settle in its own way, in its own time. Now just relax into this felt sense of love or warmth or acceptance. And let that help your heart and mind to just relax and release all of its frameworks. So your heart and mind becomes gently, completely open like space. And just letting everything be in the warmth and deep acceptance of the total openness. Just letting everything be. To unwind or release or settle in its own way. And just wide open. So thank you all. That was meditation 2 in our meditation handout that's on the course website. You can look for that. So there are 3 principles to this receptive mode kind of meditation using field of care here. 3 basic principles to it, which we have now engaged. First, with that field of care framework, bringing to mind our field of care, caring moment or benefactor or however it is, and not just as a memory or abstraction, but actually experiencing it here, now, feeling how that feels. And we begin immediately to access loving energies and loving qualities from our underlying awareness. That field of care, that recalling and re-inhabiting it, is what evokes and gives us access to these loving qualities from our own underlying awareness. And that's actually what loving people in caring moments and what our benefactors have been doing all along by being present to us in a loving way in any given moment. They are evoking our own underlying capacity to feel what love feels like, to feel what it's like to be seen as worthy of care, to feel that. They're evoking our capacity. That's how it's worked all along. They never gave us these capacities, they evoked them. So when we recall a field of care and re-inhabit it, again, it evokes it. We already know how to do that, how to let that be done. So the first principle is accessing loving qualities from our underlying awareness. The second principle then is in the meditation we just did, noticing parts of us that arise, any sense of self and its thoughts and feelings that begin to take our attention elsewhere, away from the loving qualities. So that's the second principle, noticing. First, accessing loving qualities, noticing what part of you comes up that starts to pull your attention away from them in the ways we discussed. And then comes the third principle, including those parts of you and those feelings that come up in the compassionate space and acceptance of those loving qualities. So accessing the loving qualities, noticing what part of you comes up and feelings that draw your attention away from the loving qualities for reasons I discussed, noticing what part of you comes up. And then thirdly, including that part of you, including it in the compassionate space, warmth, acceptance of these loving qualities. Accessing, noticing, including. Okay? That's what we just did in the meditation I led. These parts of us are like children. In fact, they are parts of us, for the most part, from childhood. And they still think somewhat like children. I'm sorry, I mean, I'm speaking to you, but I guess I'm also speaking to the parts in you and also my parts. So I'm apologizing. Sorry, parts of me and you. But you are kind of like children, right? You've got to admit it. You're really like children. That's not a put down. It means that, like children, they're looking for something. They're looking for unconditional love. That's what children need, and that's what these parts of us need. The problem is that these parts of us figured out very early on, usually in our childhood, that they cannot get reliable, totally unconditional love from the world around them. And because they think that the experience of loving qualities comes only from others, only from the external world around them, these parts of us, they have developed strategies since childhood to prevent us from becoming more receptive to those loving qualities. The experience of loving qualities signals to these parts of us danger, because we cannot trust the external source of those qualities of love. This is therefore a real process of learning for these parts of us, and it takes time and repetition in the meditation like we just did, to help them learn that what they are experiencing in this meditation is not coming actually from an external source. The external field of care is merely triggering, evoking, like a bucket drawing up the water. It's evoking, bringing out these loving qualities from our own underlying awareness. And that underlying awareness is totally reliable and has a power of unconditionality that we can learn to become receptive to. And as we do, then we start to learn how to become a benefactor for others that can become more and more reliable, more and more moments of being more unconditional. We can learn that. And that's the direction that this training is taking us. So these parts of us are like children looking for unconditional power of love. They've been seeking for all along for that unconditional power of love for us. And when they begin to feel the deeply healing effects of that unconditional power of love, like in this meditation, when they begin to actually get clued in and realize, oh my gosh, this is something I can rely on. I don't have to prevent John, my name's John. I don't have to prevent John from immersing in these loving qualities. I don't have to prevent it because the source of these loving qualities is just kind of bottomless. It's okay. Then these parts of us feel like, wow, this is great. And they can just begin to snuggle in like children snuggling in. It's really like that. Oh, okay, time to snuggle. And then they just can snuggle into the same space of loving, compassionate acceptance and warmth, which is what we're opening to in the meditation. They can learn that, but it takes, they have to learn it in their own time, just like children. You can't rush them, right? You ever try to get a child to go somewhere on time? You have to put the booties on and then the gloves on and then all this, then they have to go to the bathroom. Have any of you ever had any children? I don't know. Anyhow, similarly, we cannot rush these parts of us. They need to take their own time. That happens through repeating the meditation and helping them to get used to this possibility that the loving qualities are not something that they have to defend against on behalf of us. They're trying to help us, these parts of us, prevent us from getting hurt. It takes them time to catch on that what the meditation is establishing is access to a source of loving qualities that is totally reliable, and that these parts of us do not defend against because it's reliable and can be increasingly unconditional. The loving power of our underlying awareness. In Buddhist terms, that would be our Buddha nature. In theistic terms, that would be part of our created nature from God, if you will. The depth of our being. Okay, so we're at the end of our time. There's just a few more things that I need to say, and I could, maybe what I'll do is just say them. It'll take about 3 minutes. So we're going to go over by 3 minutes, but there are some key learnings in this practice that I just want to state. One is the mind is learning that it does not have to be totally identified with any one part of ourselves, any one sense of self that comes up in its feelings. Our mind is learning it doesn't have to be totally identified with any one part of us by letting each part be embraced in the unconditional acceptance of our fuller awareness, which is larger than any part. So our fuller awareness is freed from being caught up in any one part, not by rejecting it, but by holding that part in compassionate awareness. So in this meditation we just did, which is meditation 2 in your handout, and I would ask you to keep revisiting it and exploring it over the coming week. In the meditation, our identity actually starts to shift from one part of us to the fuller awareness that is holding that part in care. And this is called unblending. I'm drawing here a little bit on the terminology from a model of the mind called internal family systems. Just drawing on it a little bit here. This is called unblending. Our identity shifts from one part of us to the fuller awareness that is holding that part in care and compassion. Like a parent holding a child in care. So in this way, we begin to reunite with our fuller underlying awareness. The fuller awareness that can embrace all parts of us in compassion without being caught up in any one part. The second key point is that by letting all parts of us and their feelings feel deeply accepted in this compassionate space, every part of you loved. And these parts of us feel increasingly safe here at home with us, can begin to relax, unclench, settle, and heal. So there's a tremendous healing power in this practice. Thirdly, just as our fuller awareness, when it's not identified with any one part, can embrace all of our parts and feelings in care and compassion, the same awareness can hold others and their feelings also in care and compassion, without contributing to so-called compassion fatigue or mental depletion. So in that way, this receptive mode of practice prepares us, helps us to become more fully present to others. It turns out it was not only about myself. It was a way to become a new way or a fresh way to become caringly or lovingly present to all parts of myself, all kinds of feelings. And as that begins to happen, I am already becoming more caring or lovingly present to others and their feelings. It's automatic. So there's an awful lot built into this practice. There was a lot that we covered in this hour. So I really want to thank you all for your patience with all this and deep exploring here this way with me. It's really inspiring for me. And that's enough for tonight. So I would ask you, if you're interested, to keep really, this is meditation 2 in the handout, so keep exploring it. The recording, this is recorded and that appears on the course website. And then if you can, maybe touch in on this practice in the morning for a few minutes and then little moments in your day. And then if you have questions, tomorrow night I'll be here I'll lead the meditation again and then have Q&A. And you can submit questions for that to the email address that's in your course welcome letter, okay? So thank you all for coming. That's enough for tonight. You've been very good. Thank you. And I'll see some of you tomorrow night. Thank you all. Bye-bye.